Hello and welcome. My name is Amanda, and today I have for you my May wrap up. This entire month of May, I participated in the Finish a Series Readathon that was hosted by my friend Darshell over at Books and Planners. I will leave her channel link down below if you want to go check her out. So this month, as the name of the readathon implies, it was all about finishing series or at least progressing a little further in series that I've started. So I did finish one series and I got a little further into other series. So I think I want to start with the series that I did finish, and that was The Time Quintet by Madeline L'Engle. This series is a 5-book series. It follows the Murrays, and where I thought that the second book would pick up after A Wrinkle in Time, which is a book I read in 6th grade, and then I reread it in 2016. I was a little disappointed to find out that these books don't follow the events that happen in the other books necessarily. So the first book I read was the second book in the series, which is A Wind in the Door. And I have little post-its with notes on the back. So where we leave off in A Wrinkle in Time, Meg is, oh gosh, how old is she? I don't think she's quite 14. I think she might be 13, and Charles Wallace is 5, which is, she's the oldest of the Murray kids and Charles Wallace is the youngest of the Murray kids. And this this book, you've got Meg in high school and Charles Wallace is just starting in, I don't know if it would be kindergarten or 1st grade, but like I said, it doesn't pick up where A Wrinkle in Time left off. And it's really not connected in any way to the events that happened in A Wrinkle in Time. Like it doesn't explain where that left off. It doesn't seem like the kids went where they went in A Wrinkle in Time. It doesn't seem like anything like that, which I thought was a little weird. But basically, Charles Wallace is getting bullied at school, and he's also really sick. And what his mother has kind of figured out is that there's something wrong with his mitochondria, and at a deeper level, a more microscopic level, is that his farandula, I called it farandole as I was reading, but I think it's farandula. So basically there's a teacher that comes to the Murray homestead, and the kids being Meg and Calvin O'Keefe, who Cal was in the first book, they have to go on a series of tests to basically get Charles Wallace's farandula to do the things that it needs to do in order to save him. So that's basically where that one left off. And then the next book was A Swiftly Tilting Planet. And this one, I feel like, no, that's the next one. So this one jumps forward like a good 15 years or so. Not 15 years, 11 years. So Meg and Cal are married, and Meg is pregnant. Charles Wallace is now 15. And the twins, Dennis and Sandy, are a doctor and a lawyer. And then their dad has been working closely with the president, and he goes to Washington quite a bit. And he receives a call from the president that there's somebody who wants to bomb the US. And so basically this story is Charles Wallace going back in time and figuring out the events of the past that led to this event happening. So it's kind of him changing the past so that the future doesn't come to fruition. And there is a reference to A Wind in the Door in this, because in this story, the kids do this thing called kithing, where they can, it's basically like telepathy, but it's called kithing. And Charles Wallace and Meg have to hide during this. So that's where it kind of ties in a little bit. But all the events take place in one present day, other than like the events that Charles Wallace is going through taking place over multiple days and hours and months and things like that. There's a tesseract that's mentioned, which is mentioned in later books. So I feel like these last 4 books really tie in a lot better together than A Wind in the Door does. But I feel like this should have been book 4 if we're going chronologically by age, which makes a little more sense, even though none of the events are really connected. There's just little like connections here and there. So I feel like this should be book 4 instead of book 3, and then book 4, I feel like should be book 3. Many Waters follows it follows Dennis and Sandy, which is a little different because we usually follow Meg, Cal, and Charles Wallace. So it's nice to kind of bring the twins in a little bit. This had the potential to be my favorite storyline, but there was something about it that just, I don't know, it just didn't get there. So in this, the twins are 15. They're the middle children, which is why I feel like this should be 3rd because of the ages of the kids and stuff. So they mess with, I want to say they mess with the Tesseract. There's some experiment that their dad is doing, and they go into the lab to find hot chocolate and end up touching one of the projects, and it takes them back to pre-flood and Noah building the ark times. And it again takes place in one present day, though it happens over quite a bit of time that the boys are in the past. They end up getting sunburnt really badly and getting cared for by a grandfather and then Noah, essentially, and his family. So they bring the 2 families back together. They help build the ark. They help like coordinate everything. And it just, I guess the issue for me with this one is that, and this is for most of these books. So these books are, I think they're middle grade genre, but because of the ages of most of the characters, I feel like they should be young adult. And the content inside is laid out in a very middle grade format. But then, like, some of the subject, like this talks about a girl in her pregnancy and giving birth and like all that stuff that I don't feel like middle grade kids should read. So it's kind of more like young adult content, but it's just, I don't know where they sit, and they sit on a really weird line, which I think is why I don't really like them as much as I should. But, you know, boys come back to home eventually and get in trouble for messing with their dad's stuff. So then the last book is An Acceptable Time, and this one follows Polly, who is Meg and Cal's oldest daughter, or oldest child. They have like 7 kids or something like that. And Polly is spending time at the Murray homestead. She's spending time with her grandma and grandpa, and Dr. Louise and her brother, who are in the other books, play a pretty big part in this. There is a, what is it called? Portal. It's not a portal, but it's like a time rip, I guess you could call it, where Polly and this really awful boy who like pretends to be in love with her, but he's just really selfish. He can get through, I think his name is Zach, and then his name's not Mason, it's Nason. I think it's Nason, is the doctor's brother. They can go back and forth through this time thing. And it's basically like most of the story revolves around Zach's heart. And he hasn't been given much time to live. So the driving factor is that he thinks that people in this other time can help fix his heart because they promised it. There's this war going, or this feud going on in the past between the two different sides of the lake, because one side of the lake gets rain and their crops are really fruitful and stuff. And then the other side is super dry and dusty, and they basically have to raid the other side because if not, their people will starve. So the shamans kind of promise Zach that they can fix his heart and they think Polly has the ability to bring rain and stuff. So there's a big thing about that. I think I like this book quite a bit more. I think if I had to put these in order, I think A Wrinkle in Time would be first. Then I would go Many Waters, then An Acceptable Time. I think then A Wind in the Door, and probably last A Swiftly Tilting Planet, in order of how much I liked them. But unfortunately, I think I only gave these books 4-star ratings. A Wind in the 2-star ratings, I mean. A Wind in the Door, I read as a physical book that was 203 pages. I gave that a 2-star rating. Swiftly Tilting Planet and Many Waters, An Acceptable Time, I listened to through my library app. So Swiftly Tilting Planet was 7 hours 23 minutes. That was a 2-star rating. Many Waters was 8 hours 55 minutes and a 2-star rating, and An Acceptable Time was 9 hours and 41 minutes and a 2-star rating. And again, the reason being is that I'm not entirely sure where they fit. I don't think they're bad books, but I think because of the setup and what age range I think they're set up for, but the content, it doesn't really mesh well. So even though I feel like, for example, I have an 8-year-old son who's getting into reading and he is liking more chapter books and things like that. I don't think I would recommend these books to him until he was probably at least in his teens. And by then I don't know if he would be out of that like middle grade range or not. So it is what it is. I am glad though that I did finally finish the Time Quintet series, though I am really disappointed that the events didn't happen and pick up where A Wrinkle in Time left off, because I really want to know what happened to Charles Wallace, and I guess I'm never gonna get answers to that. So that was the one series I read. And then I had one standalone for the month that was a no, it wasn't a carryover. No, maybe it was. I don't remember. Was it a carryover? Yes, it was a carryover from April that I finished at the beginning of May. That was Tell the Wolves I'm Home. And I read this on my Kindle, and I only had 234 pages left. I gave it a 3-star rating. It follows a 14-year-old girl who is really close with her uncle and godfather, Finn, who passes away from AIDS. And the family is very judgmental and not accepting of Finn's boyfriend because they feel that he is the one who gave Finn AIDS, though it doesn't actually say like where Finn contracted the AIDS. Finn is a really good artist, and he basically in his last days decides that he wants to paint a portrait of the two sisters whose names I'm completely blanking on right now. The youngest is the one that's his goddaughter, and then her older sister is her older sister. She's not as close with their Uncle Finn. So then there's this whole thing that goes on with the portrait. When Finn passes away, it's obviously left to the family. And it gets put in a bank vault because a lot of people, because it's basically Finn's last finished work, they want to buy it because it's worth quite a bit of money. But basically only the girls get keys to the bank vault, and throughout it they kind of deface the portrait and make it a bit their own. And then the youngest, who was Finn's goddaughter, she develops a relationship and friendship with his boyfriend, and so it kind of is a story of a sister relationship falling apart, a budding relationship between a girl who is supposed to be made to feel one way towards this boyfriend and who ends up really liking and respecting him and thinking of him as like an actual decent person, and then just the family relationship and dynamic throughout it. I thought it was a pretty decent story. I don't have a sister, so I don't really know what like sister relationships are like, so I don't know if that was a good representation of sister relationships, but ultimately I did like kind of the message that it portrayed, and the things like that. So I did like that book, but it was just a 3-star rating for me. And then the next book I'll get into is from The Wicked Years. This is the 3rd book in that series, which is A Lion Among Men by Gregory Maguire. I read this in the physical form, and it was, how many pages? 309 pages. I gave this a 2-star rating. I struggle with Gregory Maguire books a lot because I like the idea of them, but I feel like the story isn't good until like the last couple of chapters. So it's a lot of just dragging on and kind of not pointless because it does add to the story, but the beginnings are just so, I don't know, so much information, and it's kind of like, okay, well, what's the importance of this? And you don't find out until like later in the story. But I do think this is wrapping up the story nicely. It'll be nice to finally get to Out of Oz and see how the story finishes up. So we'll see. But it was 2-star rating for me. I thought the plot could have been condensed, or I don't know, something could have changed. But then the ending was really good, so that one's a little tricky. And then the last series that I made progress in was this big beast of a series, the Outlander series by Diana Gabaldon. I listened to both Drums of Autumn and The Fiery Cross through Scribd, and I think these two and Outlander are my favorite 3 books in the series so far. So Drums of Autumn, I gave a 4-star rating. This was a 44-hour and 50-minute audiobook, and I really enjoyed that because at a point we're following multiple time periods and different characters from each time period, and in this they come together, and I really liked that, though I did feel like there was a lot of eye roll worthy parts. There was a lot of parts where it's like, come on, you're not in the 1950s, 1960s anymore. Like, get smart about what you're doing in 1770 whatever. Like, yeah, come on. So there were definitely some frustrating parts. But overall, I did really like the story and just the family dynamic and that sort of stuff. This kind of gave me a bit more of the culture that I was expecting Outlander to have, even though this is set in the US and not in Scotland. So I did really like that. And then Fiery Cross just picks up from there. This was a 55-hour and 33-minute audiobook that I also gave a 4-star rating. The first third of the book was really boring because it takes place at a gathering, and there's just lots of drama and things that go on there. But then my favorite part of this book, I want to say, is Jamie and Roger's relationship and friendship and how it grows. They just have such a respect for each other, and they are able, like, I don't know, they're just really good together, and I really enjoy it. I like how this story has evolved. There was an exciting little bit at the end, again, that I really enjoyed, and I'm excited to see where the next book goes. Though I do think in June I'm going to take a break from the Outlander books because I need a break of the drama. These are like so drama filled, and it's fun to an extent, but I kind of like love to hate on these books just because it's so much drama. It's so much like, you know better than that. What are you doing? Like, just stop. And I feel like she just fills in the story and the plot for the sake of having drama. And it's like, do we have to have something happen every chapter? But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this goes. There is a big enemy in these two books that I would like to see disposed of in the next book, but we shall see. So that is my wrap up. I read a total of 8 books and read 746 pages, which is pretty good for me. I do a lot of audiobook listening versus physical reading. And then total time listened was 126 hours and 22 minutes because of those big whoppers of books by Diana Gabaldon. And then, not really surprising because I did rate some books so low this month. My average rating for the month was 2.6, which I'm not surprised of. I am glad that I got those books read, but I don't think I'll revisit the stories, and I think I'll eventually put them on my son's bookshelf for him to read when he's a little older. But it's nice to know finally that I'm never gonna have that story wrapped up. So that was it. I would love to know if you participated in the BP Finish a Series Readathon. If so, did you finish any series, or did you get further in series? Did you participate in any other readathons during May? And if so, what was your favorite book or least favorite book? Or if you've read any of these books as well, let me know if our opinions on them differ. So please do chat with me down in the comments below, and I'll talk with you there until my next video. Bye!